My fated mate, Alpha Kalen, rejected me 7 times. The first time we bonded, he whispered against my ear, his breath hot. From now on, my soul sings only for you. But then his first love, the Omega Seraphina, came back for him. And just like that, he rejected me. They shared a mate's mark from their past. It left her hopelessly addicted to his scent. I'm sorry, he'd said. I have to be with Seraphina. The scent addiction is destroying her. She can't even shift. Her wolf is weakening. The first time he rejected me, I slashed a silver dagger across my wrist. I let the blood flow, hoping the pain would make him look at me. It worked. Kalen was horrified. He left Seraphina for a moment and rushed to my side, holding me, comforting me. The third time, I disguised myself as an ordinary pack wolf. I got an internship at his pack headquarters, just to breathe in the air he breathed. But this time he looked right through me, as if we were strangers. By the 6th rejection, I had learned how to calmly erase my scent from his suite. I left without a sound. My screams, my surrender, my begging, and what I got in return. Every time he was with her, the full moon would rise, and he'd call me back, just to play the same sick game all over again. Until now, I heard Seraphina was coming back again. So I handed him the ceremonial dagger myself. He set the date for my return, just like always. He had no idea. This time, I'm the one severing the bond for good. And I am never coming back. Seraphina's back. This rejection ceremony, before Kalen could finish, I was already on my feet. I placed the silver ceremonial dagger, and the obsidian bowl for the wolf's blood right beside him. I'd heard the news last night. His first love, Seraphina, was returning. I knew what was coming. Another rejection. And I would have to endure the agony of our mate bond shattering, no matter how much I cried and begged. Kalen paused for a second as he took the dagger, his golden alpha eyes locked on my face. You're quiet tonight, Ilara. His voice was cold as usual. What new trick is this? No tricks. I just know what's going to happen. I stepped back to give him room for the ritual. Let's get this over with. Kalen's brow furrowed. He wasn't used to me being so cooperative. But his arrogance returned quickly. He took the dagger. He sliced his palm open with practiced ease. I'd never prepared the ritual for him before. Not unless he commanded it. I stood there, silent, letting the familiar pain tear through me. I clenched my fists so hard I thought my bones would shatter. Just one last time, Ilara, I told myself. Endure it one last time. When the ritual was over, I looked at his indifferent face and couldn't help but wonder, doesn't the bond breaking hurt him too? Or does his power just shield him from the agony? He made the same casual promise he'd made the last 6 times. Next full moon I'll call you back. You're still my fated mate. Before, I would have clawed. For more than an empty promise. I would have forced him to swear on the moon goddess. To seal it with a blood pact. Anything to claw my way back to my mate's side, to bond with him again. But this time, my heart was a frozen wasteland. I didn't even have the energy to respond. Ilara, are you listening to me? Kalen's frown deepened. His alpha dominance radiated off him. A silent warning against my silence. I just nodded. Yeah. But I didn't stop what I was doing. I went back to the bedroom, folded my last moon-white dress, and placed it in my suitcase. When Kalen said he'd call me back, he meant it. He would re-establish our mate bond on that exact day. He was the strongest alpha on the continent. His word was law. There was no doubt about that. We weren't mates. We were a contract, one he tore up and renewed on his schedule. The contract was called the mate bond. Every year, it was broken. Then it was reforged. I had already endured the soul-tearing agony 7 times. I still remembered what he told me, with the moon goddess as our witness. He promised he would never be unfaithful during our bond. And he kept his word. After all, once the rejection ritual was done, he was free to mark whoever he wanted. The cost? I was a joke. The Luna he could summon and discard at will. My strange behavior today seemed to throw Kalen off. He must still remember me hysterical, slashing my wrists with a dinner knife, threatening to jump off the bridge if he broke the bond, and crying for him again and again. I walked to the fireplace in his penthouse. Using the power gifted to me by the moon goddess, I erased every trace of my scent. The fragrance of moon petal orchids vanished. The warmth from my favorite wool blanket disappeared. Even the faint traces of my magic in the air were wiped clean. He watched me erase myself from the room, faster than I ever had before. He spoke, a hint of awkwardness in his voice. Maybe this time I could just move into the guest room. Click. I snapped my suitcase shut, cutting off his pathetic offer. I already made plans. I'm staying with Brenna. Kalen's face darkened, as if he'd just remembered something. Don't play your games again. Are you planning to go undercover as an intern at PAC headquarters to spy on me? Alara, can't you get a life? Can't you stand on your own 2 feet without a mate? I knew what he was really saying. He didn't want me anywhere near PAC headquarters, ruining his perfect little world with Serafina. After all, with Serafina back, Kalen would want his delicate, Omega childhood friend to feel his presence at all times. Maybe he wanted to relive their teenage fantasies, marking each other in his office. After the second rejection, I had disguised myself as a new intern. I walked into his office carrying his favorite Bloody Mary, my heart full of hope. And I saw him. He was kissing Serafina, who was sitting on his lap. He was kissing her like he wanted to devour her. I lost it. Wolf took over. I lunged for Serafina, but Kalen slapped me so hard I hit the floor. Outside the office, all the PAC elites were watching the show. Everyone thought I was still his Luna. They looked at Serafina with contempt. To protect her reputation, Kalen ignored my shaking head, my silent pleas. He announced to everyone that we had performed the rejection ritual. The glowing red sigil of our bond materialized in the air, then shattered into ash. Our broken bond was laid bare for the whole PAC to see. After that, he made our rejection public every single time. Everyone knew. Kalen was protecting Serafina. I was the one clinging shamelessly, refusing to let go. But this time, Kalen's worries were for nothing. I grabbed my suitcase without a second thought. Don't worry. I won't bother you again. Kalen stared at me suspicious. It wasn't until I stepped out the door that he called out, a hint of urgency in his voice. Next full moon. Don't forget. We re-established the bond. I felt a wave of dizziness. Funny. That was the exact day my private jet was scheduled to take me off this continent. Forever. Just as I expected, Kalen didn't contact me once after Serafina came back. I wasn't like my old self, stalking his every move, haunting the corners where he might appear, just for a scrap of his attention. You look different. Brenna put down her glass, studying me. We were at the city's top rooftop bar, surrounded by the PAC's elite. Different how? You don't smell like him anymore, she said with a frown. Usually after the bond breaks, you hold on to his scent for days, like a lovesick pup. Maybe I got tired of the smell. I stood up, pulling Brenna to the dance floor in my drunken haze. I lost myself in the music, in the movement. I let it all go, all the pain of the past, and just lived. Before I knew it, I only had 20 days left on the continent. One night, Brenna and I ran into Kalen and Serafina at a private club for PAC elites. Kalen's arm was wrapped around Serafina's waist. They walked in, whispering and laughing. The mix of his powerful alpha presence and her sickly sweet Omega scent was nauseating. She looked even more fragile than before, like a porcelain doll. Shit! Brenna cursed under her breath. What is he doing here? It's a werewolf club, I said, putting my drink down and trying to keep my emotions in check. And he's an alpha. Alara? Kalen's eyes found me instantly. He stopped at our table, his dangerous alpha aura washing over us. Serafina immediately draped herself over his arm like a frightened rabbit, a sweet, innocent smile on her face. Alara, what a coincidence. You're here too. When he saw me looking at Serafina, Kalen instinctively took a step forward, shielding her completely. I knew why. He was afraid I'd lose control, that my wolf would lash out and attack her like before. But this time, not only did I keep my wolf in check, I held back Brenna, who was already shifting into a fighting stance. I forced a smile. Yeah, what a coincidence. Sensing her victory, Serafina's smile widened. She leaned against Kaylin, a picture of delicate victory. Sorry, Alara, but Kaylin promised he'd spend tonight with just me. You might have to find somewhere else to go. She tugged on his arm, her voice soft and seductive. Right, Kaylin? You should say something. Otherwise, Alara might think I'm doing this on purpose. Kaylin's gaze met mine. I saw a flicker of hesitation. But in the end, he just gave me a short nod. He didn't say a word. It hurt more than any words could have. Brenna's fangs were starting to show. I kept a tight grip on her arm. It's fine. We'll go somewhere else. Somewhere else. Somewhere without Kaylin. I was leaving soon. I wasn't going to waste my time on pointless confrontations with him. As far as I was concerned, the only good ex was a dead one. Seeing this, Serafina's eyes flashed with disappointment. She rose on her toes, her lips brushing his ear as she breathed him in. His scent was her only relief. It was pure seduction. A dare for him to mix their scents, to mate with her, right then and there. Kaylin, I feel other alphas watching me. I'm scared. The next second, in front of all the nobles, Kaylin lowered his head. He sank his teeth into her neck, giving her a temporary claim. Fangs broke skin. Their scents tangled together. A choked moan of pleasure escaped Serafina's lips, loud enough for everyone to hear. In front of all the Pax Elite, he gave the honor meant for his Luna to a half-blood Omega. It was the ultimate humiliation. The club went dead silent. Kaylin lifted his head, his gaze a turbulent mix of guilt and defiance as it landed on me. It was like he was waiting for me to scream, but also trying to read my reaction. Brenna shot to her feet. You bastard. Brenna, I said, pulling her back. Enough. I stood up and straightened my dress. Congratulations, I said to Serafina with a smile. You got what you wanted. Then I turned to Kaylin. I hope that mark satisfies both of you. A sharp pain twisted in my gut, but it was nothing compared to the agony of the bond breaking. This was temporary. It would pass. I turned my head, took a deep breath, and pulled Brenna toward the exit. Kaylin seemed stunned by my cold reaction. He stared blankly at my back as I walked away. Serafina called his name several times. He only snapped out of it when she yanked hard on his sleeve. A formal petition to sever a mate bond? Elder Aldrich looked at the documents I'd submitted, his ancient eyebrows raised high. Yes, I said, sitting up straight. I want to be formally released from my current mate bond. This is highly unusual, child, he said, flipping through the pages. Once approved, you will forfeit all privileges of a Luna, including the obligation to be summoned back at an alpha's whim. I cut in. That's exactly what I want. Eldrich sighed. I'll need 3 days to review this. But Alara, are you sure? Once this is done, it can't be reversed. I'm sure. It was dark by the time I got back to the apartment. Brenna was in the kitchen, mixing one of her special cocktails. So, she asked. 3 days until I'm a free wolf, I said, taking off my coat. And then buzz, a request for a mind link suddenly echoed in my head, that I knew that mental touch.it was Kaylin. I froze for a second. In 7 years, he had never once initiated contact. That I was always the one, like a starving puppy, desperate for any scrap of his attention. His powerful alpha presence flooded my mind, tinged with annoyance. Why are your mental shields up? I gave a casual excuse. My energy has been unstable lately. The moment the words were out, I regretted them. It sounded like I was showing weakness, like I was still craving his comfort. Sure enough, Kaylin's mental presence softened, and I could almost feel him smile. We're mates, Alara. Your mind is my territory. You can't hide from me. His possessive tone made my skin crawl. I shot back coldly. Did you need something? He immediately sensed the distance in my mind. His lazy tone sharpened. The elders told me you petitioned for severance. I sent back a simple, offering no explanation. The link went silent for a moment. Then Kaylin's tone became teasing, like he was just trying to make conversation. It's for the best, I guess. You a Luna, insisting on being an intern at the company. You treated it like a game and you still took the allowance I gave you every month. I cut him off, my patience gone. Shouldn't you be with Serafina? Kaylin's thoughts stuttered for a moment. He mumbled. There's nothing going on between us. Then he fell silent. He realized that I was just his rejected former mate too. Kaylin's guilt was palpable. I'm sorry about the rejection ritual. I was just afraid people would say Serafina, a half-blood Omega, was breaking a sacred bond, and I was afraid she would really be cursed. I nodded to myself. Serafina shouldn't be cursed. She shouldn't be blamed. So I was the one who deserved to be the joke of the werewolf world, to endure the bond-shattering pain 7 times. My heart sank, turning colder. If that's all, I'm cutting the link. Wait. Kaylin's voice was urgent. The blood moon hunt is on the 12th. I know you've wanted to go. I'll take you. We'll go together, okay? My heart skipped a beat. The blood moon hunt. The highest level celebration. Open only to an alpha and his official Luna. In 7 years, I had never been invited. Why now? Because his voice was a little fuzzy. Because it's the anniversary of the day we first met. I wanted to do something different. The anniversary of when we first met. He actually remembered. Kaylin, promise me, Alara. This time I'll Kaylin. How do you work the jacuzzi tub in the bathroom? I can't get the temperature right. It's so hot. Serafina's whiny, spoiled voice cut through the link from his end. A jolt of raw, possessive arousal. His arousal shot through our bond. He was aroused. By her voice. Just a minute, he said quickly. I'll be right. His mental presence started to pull away, but he didn't rush to cut the link. Alara, wait for me. I'll be right back. Then, I felt his thoughts spike with worry before he brutally severed the connection from his side. I lowered my mental shields completely, my face a mask of scorn. I sat on the sofa, staring into space. What's wrong? Brenna came over. You look awful. He invited me to the blood moon hunt. What? Brenna nearly dropped her glass. And then his first love called for him to fix her bathwater. I said, getting up. He ditched me to go play servant for her. That bastard. Brenna seethed. In the middle of a mind link he just got aroused. I finished for her, my face blank. Because of her pathetic little cry for help. I walked out onto the balcony and took a deep breath of the cold night air. 7 years. For 7 years, I thought I'd seen every shade of his cruelty. Clearly, I was still naive. Alara, Brenna looked at me worried. I turned and gave her a brilliant smile. Do you know where the underground fight club is? What? I need to fight, I said, dropping all my mental defenses and letting the rage and pain pour out. A few hard rounds. There were so many other things in the world that could make my blood pump. The bond had blinded me for so long. Why should I waste another second on an alpha who was already part of my past? The days without Kaylin flew by. Before I knew it, my departure was just a few days away. Even though we had no contact, I still heard bits and pieces about him and Serafina from Brenna. Apparently, they'd had a huge fight. Kaylin had even abandoned her at a banquet, a major public humiliation. Rumor had it, the fight was about me. I just laughed it off. I wasn't that pathetic Luna anymore. The one who refreshed the pack's social media feed 100 times a day, searching for any tiny clue. The one who would rush to Kaylin's side at the first sign of a crack in their relationship, ready to remind him that I was the one the moon goddess chose for him. The one who loved him most. Lovers fight. It's what they do. They always make up. What difference did it make to me? Kaylin would always choose to discard me for a single word from Serafina. After that, though, Kaylin's attempts to mind-link me grew more frequent. But I either blocked him outright, or made up an excuse to refuse. The day before I was set to leave, the anniversary of when we first met, Kaylin used his alpha command, laced with a plea, demanding I attend the blood moon hunt. You promised me. Tonight we'll see each other. Okay. It's our anniversary. You're not going to turn me down again, are you? He had never begged me like that before. Usually a single word from him, a tiny crumb of kindness, was all it took. I would have thrown myself at him, desperate to please him, only to find out that he would snatch even that crumb away without hesitation, all for Serafina. But I didn't know what to say. Because today wasn't our first meeting anniversary. It was the anniversary of our 4th recall ceremony. After so many rejections and reunions, I was the only one who bothered to remember every single detail related to him. But I agreed anyway. The blood moon hunt. I really did want to go just once. That night, I waited and waited on the sacred mountaintop where the celebration was held. Kalen never showed. I received a message through our mind link. His apology filtered through our link, laced with the roar of bonfires and drunken laughter from the hunt. I could even make out Seraphina's tinkling laugh. I'm so sorry, Alara. Seraphina's scent addiction flared up again. Her wolf is unstable. I have to use my scent to soothe her. We'll have countless anniversaries. Next full moon, I'll do whatever you want, okay? The horn of the hunt finally blew. Ancient wolf howls echoed from the valley below. I heard the sound of my own heart breaking. My wolf roared inside me, wanting to tear them apart. But there was no point anymore. I closed the link. For the first time in over a month, I opened the pack's internal social media app. A new post from Seraphina, uploaded just minutes ago, was the first thing I saw. It was a selfie of her and Kalen by the celebration bonfire. In the photo, she was wearing the moonstone necklace. My moonstone necklace. Her smile was dazzling. The firelight illuminated their faces. Kalen was looking down at her, his eyes full of adoration. The caption read, "Dancing with my alpha on this sacred blood moon night. Thank you, moon goddess, for finally bringing us together." The moonstone necklace. It was my grandmother's. 7 years ago, I gave it to Kalen for safekeeping, hoping he would one day place it around my neck at our official mating ceremony. I laughed at myself. Even just a moment ago, a tiny part of me had still held on to one last sliver of hope for him. 7th time's the charm, right? That final sliver of hope inside me died. But this was the last time. The very last time. With nothing left holding me back, I went straight to the private airfield and sat there all night. At 7 a.m., the jet was ready. Kalen mind-linked me, asking when I would return. I didn't answer. I just blocked his mental signature. At 8 a.m., as I was boarding, Kalen called my phone. I didn't pick up. I blocked his number. At 9 a.m., I had just settled into my seat. Suddenly, Brenna's frantic mind-link broke through the jet's shielding. "Alara, he's going insane. He's tearing the city apart trying to find you." Then another presence slammed into my mind. Stronger. More violent. Kalen's roar exploded in my head, shaking me to my core. "Alara, where are you?" But I threw my shields up again, cutting him off completely. "I'm somewhere you can never find me." The plane taxied onto the runway. The engines roared to life. I closed my eyes. 7 years ago, on a full moon night, he'd bitten the nape of my neck and whispered, "From this day forward, my soul is bound to yours." The moonlight spilled through the window onto our tangled bodies. I thought that was forever. Tonight, 7 years later, I was severing that thread myself, a thread called fate. I summoned the ancient power in my blood. It was forbidden magic. A gift from the moon goddess to the silver moon pack. A last resort, for matters of life and death. Silver light erupted from my chest. A blade, slicing through the bond that bound me to him. A soul-shattering pain ripped through me. This was worse than all 7 of my rejections combined. My insides were on fire. Every nerve screamed in protest. But strangely, in that agony I felt free. More free than ever before. Meanwhile, at Brenna's place, Kalen was holding his phone. A gut-wrenching scream tore from his throat. He collapsed to his knees. His golden alpha eyes bled to red. The agony of the bond being severed, one-sided, permanent, was so intense he could barely hold his human form. His bones cracked, the sound filling the room as his body contorted, shifting violently between man and wolf. "What is this? What is this?" His voice was a raw, broken rasp, forced from his throat. Brenna loomed over him, arms crossed. Pity was nowhere in her eyes, only cold contempt. "That's the price of the final severance," she sneered. "Alara used the forbidden magic of the silver moon pack. The bond between you is gone. Forever." "No, impossible." Kalen trembled, like a dying animal. "She can't do this to me. We're fated mates. The moon goddess chose us." "Fated mates." Brenna's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Kalen, it's been 7 years. When did you ever treat her like a real Luna? What do you think the mate bond is? Something you can throw away and pick back up whenever you feel like it. Kalen's eyes lost focus. Blood trickled from his nose and ears. Where did she go? Tell me where she went. She's gone, Brenna said, looking him dead in the eye. Left this continent. Went somewhere you'll never find her. She promised the next full moon we were going to rebond, Kalen muttered, like a madman. Rebond. Brenna yanked a stack of papers from a drawer and slammed them down in front of him. This is a permanent exile order from the elders. And this, she slammed down another paper, is her official acceptance by the strongest pack on the southern continent. Kalen looked down. His breath caught in his throat. The documents, stamped with golden seals, were like daggers in his heart. Get it now. Brenna's smile was vicious, triumphant. She's free. And you? You get to die a slow, agonizing death. All alone. Kalen's knuckles turned white, his nails digging into his palms. Blood dripped onto the papers, blooming like dark red flowers. She can't leave. He forced each word through his teeth, his eyes wild with madness. She's my fated mate. She can't leave me. I won't allow it. You won't allow it? Brenna shoved him back. Kalen, what right do you have? Do you even deserve her? She pointed to the door. Get out. Get out now. The airport. The plane was long gone, a ghost in the night sky. Kalen's car screeched to a halt. He could only stare at the empty runway. He stumbled from the car, scrambling toward the tarmac. Elara! His roar echoed across the empty airport, startling a flock of sleeping crows. His beta trailed behind him, his voice trembling. Alpha Luna Elara's trail, it's been blocked by a powerful magic. Our trackers can't find her. Kalen's blood ran cold. She really went this far? He immediately contacted every resource he had, private investigators, mages, even trackers from the black market. Find her. His voice was hoarse, his eyes crimson. He was a caged animal, cornered and bleeding. I don't care what it costs. You will find her. But no matter what he did, every lead came back a dead end. Elara was gone, like she had never existed. And he finally realized. This time, his Luna wasn't coming back. Kalen stumbled home, a hollow shell of a man. The moment he opened the door, he smelled it. The familiar scent of moon orchids. Elara's favorite. His heart leaped. Pure joy flashed in his eyes as he scrambled inside. Elara? You're back. You finally came back. His voice trembled with hope, with a desperate, pathetic plea. But the person in the living room sent him crashing back to reality. Serafina was there, wearing his oversized white shirt, the hem barely covering her thighs. She was butchering a bouquet of moon orchids, cramming them into a vase. Petals littered the floor like a shattered dream. She saw him and immediately gave him that familiar, sweet smile. Kalen, you're home. I made you your favorite. All hope vanished. Kalen's face went cold. The joy in his eyes turned to an even deeper despair. What are you doing here? His voice was ice. I sent you away. I came back. Serafina put down the shears and walked toward him, a smirk on her face. She placed a hand on his chest, her tone possessive. I couldn't stay away. Kalen, I want to be with you. She tilted her head up, her eyes gleaming with triumph. I'm not leaving this time. Let's have our mating ceremony. Kalen laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. He shoved her hand away. Mating ceremony? Serafina, who the hell do you think you are? Her face froze, then flushed a deep red. What's that supposed to mean? For 7 years, when you pushed Elara away, who was by your side? Me. I was the one you ran to. By my side. Kalen's gaze turned dangerous. You mean all those times in my office? Or how you just happened to show up right after I performed the rejection ritual with Elara? I rejected her for my sake, Serafina. Not yours. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her face went pale. That's not true, she shrieked. Kalen, you rejected her for me over and over. Don't you dare pretend to be in love with her now. If you don't love me, why did you always mark me? Why did you protect me in front of everyone? Kalen fell silent. He remembered it all now. After every rejection, Alara would vanish. And every time, the crushing emptiness would drive him straight to Serafina. It was never love. It was habit. It was an escape. Escaping the disappointment in Alara's eyes. Escaping the pain he'd caused. Because his voice was barely a whisper. Because I was a coward. What? Serafina didn't hear him. I said. Kalen's head snapped up, a moment of painful clarity in his eyes. I rejected her because I was a coward. I was terrified of admitting I needed her. Terrified to admit I would die without her. So I chose the easy way out. I chose you. Because being with you meant no responsibility. No real commitment. Serafina's face twisted into a snarl. You're lying. You love me. She stalked toward him, her eyes filled with a desperate obsession. Who was it that kissed me so hard in your office? Who came running to me every single time he pushed her away? You think you can lie to yourself? Kalen, you love me. Looking at her contorted face, Kalen suddenly remembered. 7 years ago, Alara cooked for him for the first time. She was terrible at it. She'd burned her hands in several places, but she smiled as she served him a table of burnt, misshapen dishes. Try it, I know it doesn't look great, she'd said so timidly. And what was he thinking then? He was thinking about how much better Serafina's fish soup was. 5 years ago, Alara was sick with a fever. She was unconscious for 3 days. Her first words when she woke up were, I'm sorry I missed the Elder Council meeting with you. And where was he for those 3 days? In Serafina's apartment, listening to her complain about how jealous the other Omegas were. 3 years ago, after he rejected her for the 6th time, Alara's hands trembled as she erased her scent from his apartment. She'd said, your home should be the way it was. And what was he thinking? He was thinking he could finally move Serafina in. The memories flooded him, each one a knife in his gut. No, Kalen staggered back, clutching his head. It wasn't like that. He finally understood. He had never loved Serafina. He had only ever loved Alara. He was just too much of a coward, too selfish to admit it. Seeing him like this, Serafina's smirk returned. See? You can't live without me. That woman Alara was never good enough for you. Shut up. Kalen grabbed her wrist, his grip so tight she thought her bones would snap. Don't you dare talk about her like that. Hit a nerve, did I? Serafina winced, but her eyes were full of venom. Now that Alara can't take your hypocrisy anymore and left, you want to play the devoted mate? You deserve this. She screamed hysterically. You deserve to never find her. You deserve to die alone. In that instant, Kalen's eyes went pure crimson. For the first time, he unleashed his punitive alpha command on her, a lethal pressure used only for traitors. Serafina collapsed, blood pouring from her nose and ears as she convulsed in agony. I told you. Kalen's voice was terrifyingly cold, like a judge from hell. If you hadn't provoked Alara again and again, she wouldn't have left. If it wasn't for you, we never would have ended up like this. He snarled into his phone, calling the pack enforcers. Get here. Now. Strip Serafina of her rank. Mark her as rogue. Throw her out. Panic finally broke through Serafina's pain. She crawled toward him, desperate. You can't do this to me, Kalen. I love you. I was with you for all those years. Love. Kalen looked down at her, his eyes filled with disgust. You don't know the first thing about love. Love was Alara giving up her pack, her entire life for me. Love was her waiting for me every full moon, even after I hurt her 1,000 times. Love was her never asking for anything, just hoping I would be a little kinder. And you. His voice dropped to absolute zero. You're nothing but a parasite. Heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. The enforcers had arrived. Serafina was dragged away, her screams echoing down the hall. You'll regret this, Kalen. You're nothing without me. Alara is never coming back. She's never coming back. The door slammed shut. The world was finally quiet. Kalen stood frozen, staring at the crushed moon orchid petals. On the floor. He sank to his knees, his fingers trembling as he picked up the broken petals. One by one, as if he could gather the shattered pieces of his own soul. The scent of the flowers filled the room just like the woman who would never return. For 3 years, Kalen had ripped the world apart looking for her. He hired the best PIS, bought informants in every pack. He even made deals with dark mages, all for a single clue to Alara's whereabouts. But she had vanished without a trace. Kalen's beta carefully handed him the latest report. Alpha, we have a lead from the southern continent. Someone saw a woman who looked a lot like Luna Alara at an auction. Book the flight. Now. Kalen shot to his feet, a wild hope in his eyes. 3 days later he returned dragging his feet, his eyes emptier than before. Another dead end. Just a stranger with a similar profile. Alpha, the beta started hesitant. The healers say your condition. Shut up. Kalen waved him off, his voice a raw whisper. For 3 years, the pain of the broken bond had been eating away at his body and soul. His once mighty alpha strength was fading. Even a simple shift was becoming difficult. He didn't care. As long as he was breathing, he would keep searching. Meanwhile, in the ancient Moonridge castle on the southern continent. Grandfather, are you sure you want me to take over all of the pack's businesses? I stood before a massive window, looking out over the lands that stretched below. 3 years had forged me into something new. The silver moon blood in my veins had awakened. It gave me more than power. It gave me the instincts of a queen. My grandfather, Aldrich, came to stand beside me. His face was old but still full of authority, and his eyes shone with pride. You are no longer that broken girl crying over a worthless alpha. You are the queen you were always meant to be. He handed me an ancient seal, the symbol of the pack's highest authority, passed down for 1,000 years. From this day on, you are the high leader of the Southern Continent's Wolf Coalition. I took the seal, feeling the ancient power thrumming within it. When I first arrived 3 years ago, I would still cry myself to sleep. But now, grandfather, I asked softly, how is Kalen? A complicated look crossed the old man's face. You still care about him? Care? I said, my voice ice. No. I'm merely curious. How long does an alpha survive once his mate finally severs their bond? Grandfather was silent for a moment. He's still looking for you. He hasn't stopped for 3 years. Our sources say his company is on the verge of bankruptcy, and his health is failing. The healers are calling it bond severance sickness. They say he has a year. Tops. I nodded, my expression unchanged. And Serafina? Died 6 months ago, he said, his tone flat. Torn apart by a pack of rogues in the wilderness. It wasn't a clean death. I turned back to my desk and started on the day's paperwork. I see. My grandfather watched me, a flicker of concern in his eyes. Alara, are you certain you feel nothing? Grandfather. I looked up, my silver eyes as cold as a winter moon. The girl who cried for Kalen is dead and buried. I am the alpha of the Silver Moon Pack, the queen of the Southern Coalition. I won't waste another emotion on anyone who isn't worth it. My grandfather nodded, satisfied. Good. Then there's one more thing. His expression turned serious. Next month is the Global Supernatural Summit. You will attend as the Coalition's representative. The eyes of the world will be on you, including, he gave me a meaningful look, including the man who's been looking for you. My pen paused for a split second before I continued signing the document. It doesn't matter. It's been 3 years. It's time he faced what he threw away. Across the ocean, Kalen sat in his empty office, staring at a wall of financial news tickers. The stock had dropped again. 3 straight years of losses had left his once great empire crumbling. But he didn't care about any of that. He only cared about one thing, finding Alara. Alpha, his beta knocked and entered. There's news, is it about her? Kalen's head snapped up, hope flaring in his eyes. No, Alpha. It's about next month's Werewolf Summit. Kalen waved a dismissive hand. I don't care about some boring political show. But Alpha, the beta swallowed hard. The representative from the Southern Continent's Wolf Coalition. I said I'm not interested. Kalen cut him off, annoyed, about to turn back to the mountain of dead-end reports on Alara. The beta took a deep breath and blurted it out. The representative, her name is Alara Moonridge. Time stopped. The papers in Kalen's hands scattered to the floor. He looked like he'd been struck by lightning. What did you just say? Ilara Moonridge, heir to the Silver Moon Pack, and high leader of the Wolf Coalition. When Kalen's plane took off, I was at my hotel, signing for a special delivery. I opened it. It was the silver dagger, the one used in all 7 rejection rituals. A note from Brenna was clipped to it. He said finding this would make you come back. I didn't even smile. I pressed the call button for the attendant. When he arrived, I said, "Please have this melted down." Ronan, the alpha of one of the South's oldest and most powerful packs, was on one knee before me in the hotel's sky garden. For 3 years, this powerful, gentlemanly alpha had shown me a patience and tenderness he showed no one else. "It's been 3 years and 4 months since I met you." He reached into his suit jacket. His hand emerged with a small, black velvet box. "I've decided to stop counting the days." The moment he opened it, all the moonlight in the garden seemed to converge on the diamond inside. It was a heart-flame diamond, a gem forged from the very essence of his life force, the ultimate symbol of an alpha's devotion. I retrieved it from my pack's sacred vault last month. He took my hand. "It suits you even more than I imagined." The same hand that had signed countless treaties was now trembling slightly. Ronan's voice was cautious. "If you're not ready, you can wear it as a necklace for now." I smiled and shook my head, about to let him place the ring on my finger. The moment was shattered by a deafening crash. The reinforced glass of the Sky Garden dome imploded. Through the rain of glittering glass, Kalen lunged in like a beast uncaged. The sound of his expensive leather shoes grinding over broken glass was sickening. "Ilara." His eyes were shot with blood, locked on my hand in Ronan's. "You're my Luna. What are you doing? This is a betrayal of the moon goddess." Ronan, who knew everything, stepped in front of me. "Your bond with Ilara is broken. She's a free wolf. She can mate with whomever she chooses." "Shut up." Kalen slammed his hand on a table, sending a champagne tower crashing to the floor. "She's mine." He snarled at Ronan. "Who the hell do you think you are? You don't get to touch her." "So the bond is broken? Who cares? She promised she'd come back to me. I'm taking my Luna home." Ronan was about to argue, but I tugged on his sleeve and shook my head. I looked at Kalen like he was a complete stranger. "Kalen, our 7th rejection ritual was 3 years ago." His eyes widened in shock. "You're just saying that to make me mad. You promised you'd come back. You still love me, right, Ilara?" "Right. It was all Serafina. She seduced me. That's why I hurt you. I already punished her." He pulled out a magical projection stone. The stone projected a horrific image. Serafina, ragged and bleeding, being torn apart by feral wolves in the wilderness. "I made her pay," Kalen explained frantically. "You hated her, so I made her life a living hell. You think I left because of Serafina?" I laughed. "Then let me tell you something. I don't care. Just like I stopped caring about you a long, long time ago." Ronan took that as his cue, lacing his fingers with mine. I saw Kalen's eyes fixate on our joined hands, flinching as if he'd been burned. "Our mating ceremony is next month," I announced, my voice devoid of emotion. "I trust we won't be expecting a gift." Ronan's face lit up, his usual composure gone. He looked like a kid on Christmas morning. Kalen's lips started to tremble. He lunged forward like a drowning man and grabbed my ankle. "No, Ilara, you can't. You can't mate with him. You promised you'd love me forever. Please don't leave me. Please don't marry someone else." I looked down at him. 7 years ago, when you rejected me for Serafina for the first time, I was the one kneeling on the floor, begging you just like this. I slit my own wrist with the ritual dagger, staining your pristine white rug crimson. And you? You stepped over me to go to her. The butler was the one who called a healer for me. I was in the infirmary for a month. You never once tried to reach me through our link. Ronan put his arm around my shoulders. Only then did I realize I was shaking. His voice was a low, gentle rumble. "It's okay, Ilara. It's all in the past. I'll take you away from here." Kalen broke down completely, kneeling and clinging to my leg, ignoring the stares. "You can't go. I can't live without you. I never stopped looking for you. I searched the entire world." I looked down at the top of his messy hair. The face I was once obsessed with was now a twisted mask of tears and desperation. Strangely, my heart was perfectly still. Kaelin, Ronan said calmly. Touch my mate one more time, and tomorrow's headlines will be about your pack's complete financial ruin. Kaelin didn't seem to hear. He looked up, revealing a scar that ran from his forehead to his eyebrow. Remember this? You gave me this scar with the ritual bowl when you tried to sever the bond the third time, but I never blamed you. You deserved it, I said finally. Because that day, I opened our bedroom door and saw Seraphina standing there, wearing the Luna gown that was meant for me. I wrenched my leg free. Before I left, I gave him one last look. Love isn't about making up for the pain you cause. It's not a tool you use and throw away. Kaelin, you never understood what love is. Now that I know what a true alpha's respect feels like, I see your love for what it always was, a pathetic, possessive obsession. With that, I took Ronan's hand and walked away without looking back. As Ronan held the car door open for me, I could still hear Kaelin's wails from the garden. I watched his shrinking figure in the rearview mirror, and leaned my head on Ronan's shoulder. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching my heart flame ring. It scattered rainbows across the car. This is what a mate should feel like. My mating ceremony with Ronan was held at the pack's ancient castle, a grand ritual under the full moon. 300 magic crystal lamps lit the castle as bright as day. I wore a custom Luna gown, looking at the stronger, more serene woman in the mirror. Luna, the stylist whispered. There's a gentleman outside. Brenna cut her off. Tell him the bride isn't seeing anyone. I glanced through the large window. My heart skipped a beat. Outside the hall's magic barrier, a pathetic figure was kneeling in the pouring rain. Kaelin. He'd been there all night. His expensive suit hung off his skeletal frame, soaked through. His once proud shoulders were slumped in defeat. Worst of all, his knees were a bloody ruin from hours of kneeling on the rough stone. But he didn't seem to feel the pain. He just mechanically repeated the same motion. He held up a battered velvet box. Inside was the crude wolf fang pendant he'd carved for me. The cheap, thoughtless gift from our first bonding. Elara, his voice was a raw whisper, almost lost in the wind and rain. Please just see me one last time. I pulled the curtains shut, my face a mask of indifference. Tell the guards to strengthen the barrier. No one is to disturb the ceremony. But Brenna hesitated. No, but I turned, my dress swirling around me. This is my mating ceremony. I won't let anyone ruin it. Ronan walked in just then, holding a tablet. He saw my expression and a flicker of worry crossed his face. Elara, you don't have to force yourself. I'm not. I walked to him and took his arm. Let's go. The elders are waiting. Inside the moon temple, 300 guests stood in silence. The ancient crystal lamps cast a holy glow, and the air was thick with sacred incense. A heart-wrenching roar came from outside the hall. Elara! Kaelin's voice tore through the barrier, raw and broken. You can't mate with him. You are my fated mate. You promised to love me forever. The guests exchanged uneasy glances. Whispers started to ripple through the crowd. My steps never faltered as I walked elegantly toward the altar. Elder Aldrich stood before the statue of the moon goddess. Witnesses. His voice was deep and sacred. Tonight, under the full moon and before the goddess, we join Elara Moonridge and Ronan Blackthorn in an eternal bond. Elara, I have the Soul Leader's curse. The healers say it's terminal. Kaelin's voice bled through the barrier, broken and desperate. Have pity on me, please. Just come out and see me. Ronan's hand trembled slightly. This stoic, powerful alpha's eyes were turning red. I knew he was afraid I would soften. I squeezed his hand, giving him a reassuring look. Ronan Blackthorn, the elder continued. Do you swear in the name of the moon goddess to protect your mate for all eternity, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health? I do. Ronan's voice was strong and full of love, his eyes fixed only on me. Elara Moonridge, do you? He doesn't consent. Boom. The temple doors splintered inward. Kaelin collapsed into the room, a bloody, broken mess. He had clearly forced his way through the barrier, and the magical backlash had left deep wounds all over his body. Elara doesn't consent. He staggered toward the altar, leaving a trail of bloody footprints. She's my Luna. She can't mate with another alpha. The hall fell into a dead silence. 300 of the world's most powerful wolves watched in stunned silence as a dying alpha made his final, pathetic stand for the mate he threw away. I looked at the man who was once so proud, now so pathetic and broken before me. His arrogance was gone, replaced by pure desperation and pain. Elara, he reached out a trembling hand, trying to touch the hem of my gown. Please don't marry him. I was wrong about everything. I love you, I've only ever loved you. I looked down at him, my voice as calm as still water. I once knelt before you just like this. I cut my wrist with the silver dagger, my blood staining your rug. I cried and begged you not to reject me, not to leave me. Kalen's body shook violently. Tears of blood streamed down his face. And you looked down at me and said, Elara, stop being so dramatic. Serafina is waiting. I knelt down to meet his gaze. Now, I'm saying the same words back to you. Kalen, stop making a scene. My husband is waiting. As the words left my mouth, a guttural howl escaped Kalen's throat. His body began to convulse violently. Strange black marks crawled across his skin. The final sign of the Soul Leader's sickness. No, he tried to stand, but his strength was gone. You can't marry him. I'll die without you, I'll die. I rose, turning my back on him. I faced the elder. Continue. Elara Moonridge, the elder's voice shook slightly. Do you swear in the name of the moon goddess? I do. My voice was clear and firm, ringing through the temple. In that instant, Kalen's choked sob was cut short. I felt his life force, once a raging inferno, simply extinguish. I didn't have to look. I knew what had happened. An alpha who dies from the Soul Leader's sickness, their very soul is devoured, erased. They cannot return to the goddess. It is the cruelest death. And it was the end he had earned. Now, in the name of the moon goddess, I pronounce you mated. Ronan gently cupped my face and in front of everyone, gave me a kiss full of love and devotion. Behind me, I heard the guards quietly removing the body. The man who had once carved such a deep mark on my life was now gone forever. And I was finally truly free. 5 years later. Mommy, who's this man? My 4-year-old daughter, Leah, pointed to an old photo on the bookshelf, tilting her little head. It was the only picture I'd kept of Kalen and me, taken after our first bonding ceremony. The girl in the photo was smiling with such innocence. I stroked my daughter's soft silver hair. He was someone who taught Mommy a very important lesson, I said gently. He taught me what love isn't, so I would recognize what true love is when I finally found it. Did he love you like Daddy does? No, sweetie, I shook my head. He didn't know how to love. So the moon goddess took him away. She had to make room for your daddy. Leah nodded, only half understanding, and went back to her toys. I stood by the window, looking out at the moon-drenched gardens of our estate. For 5 years, Ronan had treated me like the most precious treasure in the world. He never tried to control me, never hurt me out of jealousy, never made me suffer for a single second. This was what a mate was supposed to be, mutual respect, mutual support. What are you thinking about? A familiar, warm embrace wrapped around me from behind. Ronan had just finished a conference call. He was tired, but the moment he saw me, his eyes lit up with that soft, gentle glow. I was thinking about our children. I leaned back against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. In 3 more months, our second pup will be born. Ronan gently placed a hand on my swollen belly, his eyes full of love. Later that night, we fell asleep in each other's arms. In my dreams, I was back in that rainy night 7 years ago. My younger self was kneeling before Kalen, trying desperately to hold on to a broken love. And the me of today stood above the dream, looking down at my past self with a gentle smile. Let him go. Your future is waiting. The dream faded, and I slept soundly in Ronan's arms.